Jake Darcy, ladies and gentlemen!
Thanks, Billy. Thank you. What a lovely warm welcome. So I thought I'd start by just talking about some interesting milestones. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. So I just thought I'd start by talking about some interesting milestones. Yeah, so I'm the shooter producer of Motorcycle Adventure Dirt Bike TV, but it's much bigger than me. So 50 years of motorcycling this year, 50 million views on YouTube from a baby boomer who didn't get to touch a computer until he was 28. That was the first time I touched the computer. So baby boomers, we've gone through a whole, different sort of world compared to what it is now. But by far and away the biggest thing of being here today is my lifelong partner, Sonia. 46 years of being together. Now, when we started, our relationship started on a Bull Taco Frontiera 250. Wasn't consummated on the 250, but that's where we started. And she confirmed she was going to marry a hairy biker. The hair is now gone, but when I first had it, I used to lean back like that and to go to the crack of my bum. So an extremely tolerant partner. And so I said to her, hey, let's travel to the UK and have a look around, have a cruise around, and we've just got to drop by this ABR thing. So, Sonia, thanks for coming. Alrighty. No, it's good. My thing has stopped. No. Yeah, try again. Alright, no, it's away. Good. Yeah, so Motorcycle Adventure Dirt Bike TV, who people who aren't familiar, is anyone familiar with Mad TV? A few people in the audience, a lot of people in the audience. Right, so we're a loose group of baby boomers and Gen Xers welded together through the love of motorcycling. That's what it's about. Our favourite pastime is riding and filming adventure, but we also test bikes and we build bikes. And our adventures tend to be on the wilder side. Occasionally we bring along a millennial to sacrifice in a similar fashion to Who Killed Kenny on South Park. So we bring them along sometimes. I'm going to break up the talk with a bit of video for those who aren't familiar with the channel so that you get to kind of get a flavour of what we do. They're little kind of minute sections. And it's also an opportunity to showcase the landscape of my country. So let's get going. We'll do the first one.
Welcome back to episode 2 of the Mad TV's 2022 Husky Track, held in southeast Queensland. In this final episode we move into open country, speed is up and Nugget gets intimate with a gate.
He's gonna hit it! Oh, Nugget!
We're privileged to ride a private farm with a brilliant natural terrain grass track that made us jump for joy. Nugget becomes a medic and provides a patient, Darren, with a killer python drip, a new medical innovation likely to take on amongst adventure riders.
Lyndon Poskett.
Now, before we get started, do yourself a favour. If you've missed episode 1 of this series, click on the link above to immerse yourself in husky goodness.
Yeah, so I'll dot the talk with stuff like that. So today's a smorgasbord of 50 years of riding motorbikes, and I'm just going to give you a couple of ideas. I'll touch upon the London to Sydney ride with Darren Higginson. Darren's in the room. Some thoughts on motorcycle adversity. Some thoughts on the fairer sex and what they bring to adventure. And the underlying theme of the talk is which bike for adventure. I caution though, my solution may disappoint those who like black and white. I boldly suggest if you roll up the themes of my talk like a ball of snot, you may get a clearer answer on where I'm heading. My journey to the stage is a simple one, a story underpinned by passion and fun, and that's all this was. Combination of my two loves come together, and it all started just filming mates, and then I started making DVDs, and the guys liked the DVDs. And then this thing called YouTube came along. And that changed my life. It wouldn't be the same again. And here's me on top of a Red Bull four-wheel drive in Skipper's Canyon in New Zealand, and I'm filming Chris Birch. Chris Birch is down in that valley, a couple of 100 feet below, and that was a really successful kind of partnership for a number of years there. And that video actually got close to 2.5 million views. It's riding a KTM 1190, and Chris is an amazing rider. But this is the only guy I'd stand in front of filming, you know, when he's power sliding a KTM 1190. Look how close I am, and that's how close it was. Full noise, Chris Birch precision, and Chris is riding at 4 o'clock down that way. I think well worth a look if you haven't seen Chris ride. So if there's one thing I've learned is if you surround yourself with people with no vision, no passion, who don't make you feel good, get rid of them quick. They'll squash your dreams. That's the thing, just get rid of them. Fortunately for me, YouTube opened the door to meeting a whole range of people that were really positive and passionate. Austin Vince, Sam Manicom, the list goes on. There's a whole heap of them. So that's what YouTube opened up for me. But don't walk out yet. This is not a homage to YouTube at all. But what it did do, it gave me a voice that could be heard right around the world. At the beginning, there weren't too many people listening, but one guy from the village of Bowbrick Hill, just down the road, an hour or so away, was inspired by what I was doing, and he reached out, and Darren reached out to me. I didn't know it at the time, but this bloke, you know, was going to be a brilliant riding companion, and I'd later discover he had all the qualities necessary to partner me across from London to Sydney. Great guy. He hates this photograph, and I noticed the other day on his social media page he chopped the aeroplane off because he felt the aeroplane kind of landed on his head, but anyway. So I want to go back to how we started in this and the leg up we got. The passion is one thing, but every now and again a fluky thing happens that you just couldn't believe, you know. So we started with the Jag of the Century. We secured a full sponsorship from KTM HQ in Mattergoffen, Austria, in circumstances that just mirrored a fairy tale. It's quite amazing. We weren't racers, we didn't know anyone in the motorcycle industry, we're just punters, and we liked what we did. And we were going to a factory inspection in Mattergoffen, and it was pissing down rain as we came into Mattergoffen, and we're looking around for a farm stay, and we found one, and we just turned in, and we went in there. And the lady in the farm stay, very broken English, said, "Man, behind here, work for KTM." And we went, "Oh." So, you know, we thought, oh, well, he's worked for KTM. So we went round and we had a yarn to this guy. And we sat down with him and we had a couple of beers. And he started talking to us, and he kind of slowly let out what he was about. And he started with, "Yes, I work for KTM. I've worked for KTM and I made motorcycle manuals." So that was his job. He used to write the motorcycle manuals. Oh, that's good, you know, and that's wonderful. And a few more beers later, and he said he'd worked at the KTM factory for 30 years. And then I showed him this picture. I was really enthusiastic, had a little iMac with me, and I showed him a video, and this is me crossing the Simpson Desert on a KTM 640. Hard panniers, we'll talk about them in a minute. The Simpson Desert was flooding. You can see the water there in one of the clay pans. So I showed him the video, and he could feel that Darren and I were fair dinkum. And at the end of the night, he said, just kind of let slip, I'm the production manager of KTM. So that was a pretty good start to our trip to Mattergoffen. The following day, we were going on a factory tour, and this is another coincidence. They were short on staff, and the only person who could do the factory tour was the PR manager. So Darren and I had gone a direct input into the PR manager. Now in Mattergoffen, assembly lines. There's 5 assembly lines, and one is for research and development. You can't see that one, but they used to. I don't know what they do now. They used to make the bikes, assemble them in 5 lines. And there's a very open sort of factory with a gantry. And we've walked in and we're talking to the PR manager, and Gottfried walks out of his gantry and comes along and says, "My boys," like this. And we'd just been knocked back by the PR manager who said, "Mate, the chances of you getting bikes, everyone comes to get bikes off us. We're not, it's not going to happen." And then Gottfried came out with this. And lo and behold, he comes down and he puts his arms around us. He goes like this, "My boys, this is my boys. They are going to ride bikes from London to Sydney. Yeah, they're going to ride KTMs. We give them bikes." And Darren and I went, "Oh, shit." But there's an old saying, be careful what you wish for. Now, in that picture, that's when we returned to do the actual ride. That's Hans Solander. He was the international marketing manager, and they're just checking out our bikes. So we were off at KTM 990s or KTM 690s, and I wanted to cross the Simpson Desert on the way back. So, I thought I'd take the 690s. That was not a good choice. We should have gone for the 990s. So the next stroke of luck was bumping into John Mitchinson. I don't know if John's here. No, can't see him. He's probably busy selling stuff. Now, John Mitchinson at the time, this is Rally Road Products, he was purposely building magnificent round-the-world adventure bikes out of the KTM 690. And you can see the racks there, bash plate with 3 litres of water or oil, whole range of stuff on it, just purpose-built. It was just the ideal bike for travelling from around London to Sydney, or doing anything around the world. And so with just a stroke of luck, we met John, and that's been a relationship that's gone on for years and years. Unfortunately, despite all his efforts, he couldn't turn me into a good mechanic, and he'd just given up on that. So John and Darren and I became wonderful mates. In 2015, the mad bastard came out to Australia and he rode that road bike, which was modified, a rally rated bike, across the Simpson Desert. Now that's an amazing feat, not ever going to be done again, never to be repeated, completely unheard of. But that's the sort of bloke I'm talking about. People who just never say no to anything. They have no limits. They're infectious and they're great fun to be around. And this is him, this is John at the Tropic of Capricorn. He's looking pretty pleased with himself because he's ridden over something like 1,000 sand dunes by this stage. So he's looking really happy. The mechanical unreliability of our KTM 690s was consistent in one thing. We were always making new friends to help us out of a jam. By the end of our ride from London to Sydney, those new friends would be in a chain that stretched halfway around the world. And here's our friends in Kathmandu, Nepal, and they all knew us by first name. The start of this talk may sound a little bit like a KTM whinge. It's not. The KTM that I rode from London to Sydney, I still have. That's a picture I took, was taken only a couple of weeks ago. Suspension and handling on the bike is fantastic. 500 kilometres range, a true round-the-worlder, but you've got to sort it out. Fuel pumps, rocker arms, and fuel filters. And I think if anyone's got a 690 in the audience, they'd know the deal. Yeah, so best days ever. One of my jobs is as a journalist in Australian Adventure Bike magazine, and I get to ride all the models that come into Australia. but I try not to bin them. It becomes uncomfortable when you bring back a Ducati with a bent tank or something like that. But there's the good days, and then we have adversity. And it's time to talk about adversity. So here's me riding through Fesh. It's well over 4,000 metres, around 14,000 feet on the Tibetan Plateau in China, Tibet. It's tough going, and the effects of oxygen deprivation on man and machine is real. You are definitely feeling it, that moving a bike around at that altitude is difficult. I agonise over the choice of this word adversity because from my perspective, real adversity is what's going on in a number of places throughout the world now, in particular Ukraine, Middle East and parts of Africa. So I kind of modified it a little bit, and I've called it motorcycle trip adversity, just to pull it down. You know, you can't be too sensitive about this, like it's way down there in terms of what's happening around the world. So it's right down the bottom of the pile. When you kick off these motorcycle trips, particularly the bigger ones, you can pretty well get self-absorbed when things go wrong. I mean, the anguish is intensified. You're in unfamiliar surroundings, you're in isolated areas, you've got unfamiliar customs, languages and laws, and those items in themselves have taken you out of your comfort zone. And now on top of that, you've got a problem. And I guess it would be remiss of me not to mention Darren's little problem. Just before we left from London to Sydney, he broke his wrist. I think by any one stretch of imagination, that's a decent break. And Darren was in plaster when we got here. But I'm not going to talk about that. Watch the London to Sydney movie, you can see it for yourself. But I'll leave that for homework. But that's adversity, and that was a tough gig for Darren. So this is a picture of us in the steppes of Kazakhstan, huge grasslands that stretch on for thousands of kilometres. And it all went to shit in these grasslands, known as the steppe. In the twilight, we were heading for dinner just 40 kilometres away when Darren's fuel pump died. And we were rat shit. There's no KTM place there, there's no McDonald's, there's no nothing. And you get this sense of dread, and it's getting dark, and you go, oh shit, here we go again. But as it's so flat, we're looking into the distance and we see this tiny speck of light. And so I crack out the tow rope and I tow Darren towards this light. You know, it's tens of kilometres away. And it ends up being a railway siding signal at a signalman's house. And the family came out, saw our predicament and just offered us food, biscuits, and a place to stay for the night, straight away. No hesitation, bang, straight away. And the kindness of this family to hold out their hand to help made Darren and I reflect, what would have we done if the same two hairy, smelly bikers had lobbed on our doorstep at the middle of the night? Would we have let them in? Well, I think we would. And what brought us to this moment, an inanimate mechanical object made of metal, rubber and plastic, a motorcycle. And when you push your limits, there's a good chance it will become the quintessential portal between you and your understanding of the world. Sam Manicom, who's here at the festival, has eloquently written about the power of the motorcycle to do this. However, I must caution, this won't happen with a trip to the coffee shop. No pain, no gain. Here's Kaiser helping us with directions in Kazakhstan. Kaiser! Kaiser! We went to and forth about 20 times trying to get his name right. He would not let us leave until we got young Kaiser's name right. On that same trip, my friendship with a Brit named John Pullen was forged in the fire of adversity. Sadly, John recently passed away. And this is an ideal opportunity, I'll turn this way to get out of the wind. It's an ideal opportunity to recognise John's contribution to the ethos of adventure riding. We met on the vast Russian steppe. John reached out his hand to help after another 690 breakdown, knowing full well it would be to his detriment. Despite that, he hitched up his already overloaded Yamaha Tenere 660 with 10 metres of parachute cord, to tow my KTM to the next city, which is Samara, 400 kilometres away. So it was equivalent of towing the bike from London to Paris. But the freeway, they're not freeways, they're just like a two-lane motocross track, jammed with overloaded trucks that are swaying, and their frames are bending, and you'll find them beside the road with broken frames, broken wheel bearings, broken gearboxes. Quite a challenging thing to do. Yet John did that without hesitation, embodying that spirit of camaraderie and selflessness that adventure often brings out in people. His unwavering support and good humour turned a potential disaster into a testament of human kindness and resilience. Every breakdown, every setback, every mosquito bite led us to meet incredible people and form bonds that would last a lifetime. It wasn't just a journey across continents, it was a journey into the heart of what it means to be human. In the end, it's the people we meet and the connections we make that turn a rough adventure into an unforgettable story. And as I remembered John, I realised that our trip was never about the destination, it was about the people who helped us along the way and the friends we made who are forever etched in our hearts. I'm catching up with John's riding buddy, companion, the shorter guy there, John Midgley. I'm catching up with him in the next couple of days. Flinders Ranges, South Australia.
The 2022 Triumph Rally Explorer has hit Australian shores. And we want to know, does this bike have what it takes to be classed as a dirt-oriented super tourer? And if we want to know that, we've got to head into the Australian outback. Big sky, big brown land, and thousands of kilometres of dirt roads and tracks that very quickly reveal the strengths and weaknesses of machinery not designed for purpose. Our goal is to punch out around 4,000 kilometres with a substantial proportion of those miles on the dirt. The plan is to ride from Triumph HQ in Melbourne into the Flinders Ranges, onto Cameron Corner, and then head southeast back to Sydney through some of the most interesting back roads we can find. But there's one challenge that will keep us on our toes, a wet weather system called La Nina that dominates our continent for the third consecutive year and turns the outback tracks into sticky, impassable mush.
Yeah, refreshing adventure. Just a couple of weeks ago, I went on with an off-road tour company up into Cape York. So there's a trip from Cairns to Cape York. The wet season had just finished, so this is only a couple of weeks ago, and the rivers were high. And this was a ladies' ride, all women riding from the tip, from Cape York, now called the Pajinka. It was tough. It was tough for anyone. And you can see from that picture, that's a DRZ 400. That's the tail light. So, and that wasn't the deepest water we went through. This gives you an idea.
You're going way out of their comfort zone. Good going.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people say, well, why would you ride down the creek? Well, the reason you rode down the creek is you couldn't cross the creek because the cyclones had knocked all the trees down. So they've got to find a way around, and that was the only way around. Well, normally you wouldn't ride down a creek that far, but that's just the way it is. You've just got to get there. So up until this experience, all the professionally organised rides that I have filmed, and I filmed many, have about 5% women. This lady's ride was another world that was inspiring to this old dog. And what we all know is that women look at the world differently, and they certainly ride adventure differently, and I can say that now with authority. My job is to capture riders being challenged, and in those moments it's not long before they forget the camera is there and they express their true selves. I have the added advantage of being able to zoom in on the expressions on their faces and their movements. Behind the lens, I'm recording their triumphs and challenges both as individuals and collectively, and when I'm filming adventure rides I feel like David Attenborough a bit, or some anthropologist studying a tribe of pygmies in the rainforest of South America. That's the kind of feeling I get. And someone picked up on that on this trip. This is the rarest thing I've ever filmed. I just want to say that. It's absolutely the rarest thing I've ever filmed.
Rare?
Yeah.
What's rare? Yes, it's so rare.
Yeah.
We're out here at Morton Telegraph Station and we have a female
Who's changing a tyre? Notice how she pulls the axe.
straight out.
Straight out. Her estrogen is pumping at the moment. So what did I find so inspiring about this group of riders? Well, I guess the absence of testosterone is obvious. The highly competent riders display their expertise quietly and are frequently seen helping and encouraging the less skilled. There's no horrific crashes or excessive speed or riding beyond limits, which is a common problem in Australian rides because they have nothing to prove. They are comfortable in their own skin. Collaboration and nurturing are the standout features. It's no wonder women's only adventure rides are taking off in Australia and they're booming at the moment. And I reflected that as a social media influencer, I hadn't done enough to encourage women into this sport, and only 5% of my audience are currently women. This is a recent trip I did across from the west coast of Australia to the heart of Uluru, the heart of our country.
In the heart of Australian outback, where the horizon seems to stretch on forever, we embark on a cracking motorcycle adventure. Our mission? To push Honda's 2024 adventure range to its limits, testing the capabilities of the Africa Twin and Transalp in one of the most demanding terrains on Earth. We're joined by motorcycle legend Daryl Beattie and his team.
The weather we've had and the rain that they've had out through all the way through Central Australia, right into this region, the Gascoyne region, you can see it's like carpeted with skirting trains. It's absolutely stunning. So
We set off from Carnarvon, a small town nestled on the western edge of Australia. Our destination? Uluru, the iconic red monolith that stands as the spiritual heart of this vast land.
Yeah, so now the perennial question. Sonia and I have been so overwhelmed by the amount of people that have come up to say hello to us, and the same question keeps popping up: which bike? Every time I go into this, so I've got a roundabout way of answering this, so let's see how we go. Every time I go into the Simpson Desert, it's flooding. Bizarre, but I've never ridden in the desert when it's dry. It's always been lush and full of purple and white and yellow flowers, full of wildlife, and budgerigars, which are small parrots, in flocks so large that they change the colour of the sky to an iridescent green as they flash and change direction. This is Eyre Creek, normally a dry ditch, but when it's wet, a final obstacle to getting out of the Simpson Desert. This is extremely isolated. You do not want to sink your bike here. There's no turning back. You've had 400 kilometres and 1,200 sand dunes behind you, and you don't have enough fuel. There's only one way, and that's forward. On this day, I recall crossing this river, walking it first, and the water lapped my testicles. And I knew that measurement meant that I had an inch to spare before it flooded my airbox. That was the measurement. So creating a bow wave and, well, an inch to spare. Depends, it's probably 3 inches to spare now. Creating a bow wave and maintaining a steady speed reduced the risk, and I had to commit. I'm on board my first true love, the mighty 2007 KTM 640 Adventure. I love this bike. It was the quintessential explorer. It had all the attributes. It has excellent suspension, 400 kilometres range, great seat, great comfort. It even had a Kickstarter, and of course a 10,000 kilometre service interval. Some riders felt they vibrated too much. I didn't. I regretted the day I sold it. From that day forward, nothing would come out of a factory purpose-built that served my purpose. I was doomed to builds and compromise. Now, before we go on, we need to talk about panniers. Panniers are not good in the desert. If you put your feet down, you can hyperextend your feet, and I nearly did that a few times. That was the first and last time I rode across desert or anything hard, and I had other problems like this where I just forgot what I was doing. It took 3 of us about 15 minutes to get the bike out of that. So, hard panniers, that was the end of hard panniers for me. At this point in my time, my favourite bike for adventure is the Husky 701. Mine has minimal modification, rally pegs, bark busters, OEM screen, and when needed, a set of pannier racks. My only frustration is it doesn't have the fuel range that I like. I prefer 400 kilometres range in Australia, and I have to rely on fuel bladders. But apart from that, it handles well, jumps well, it's really good. And then you get menopause. But this is when things get complicated, because there's another element to that, and that's ageing. For motorcycle adventurers, menopause kicks in during their late 50s and early 60s. The first sign, an extra bike in the shed. It might be a new powerhouse, which has as heavy as a small car. Might be an old clunker they couldn't afford when they were young. They'll farkle that bike up to the nines. I'm not sure in England if farkle is a word. Is it a word? No, farkle, accessorise. Accessorise. It's an absolute riot. We're tossing cash at our bikes like it's confetti at a horsepower party. Meanwhile, our skills are bailing out quicker than a kangaroo on a trampoline. So just confirming, it's clear I'm well into the stages of adventure menopause, and to confirm that, I will show you my latest creation, the 2023 501, purpose-built for really tough rides and desert riding, 141 kilograms, fuel full, amazing suspension, really comfortable, and it's a weapon even in the hands of this 63-year-old pensioner. It's a cracking bike. Then there's my porky Yamaha Tenere T700 at 240 kilograms. It has all the heavy bits, centre stand racks, 25 litre tank. This is my Outback mile muncher. Comfortable, practical, reliable, with a fuel range of 500 kilometres, suspension to die for, courtesy of Rally Road products, that the engine is the strongest point. So just to get you really confused, let's bring in the potato theory. And I use potatoes because most people have picked up a 5 kilogram bag of potatoes. The difference in weight between my T7, my 501, is 20 bags of potatoes. By any measure, that is a truckload of weight. Or is it? When I've asked my audience what is the key factor in purchasing a bike, about 70% say weight. And I say they're all nuts, because it's far more complex than that. One of my other roles as editor, I get to write everything. So any bike that comes into the country, I write. I'm going to suggest to you that motorcycle weight is not kilograms. It's a perception comprised of centre of gravity, steering head angle, seat height, handlebar height, handlebar width, and whether the tyres are tubed or tubeless, and engine capacity. The list goes on. The larger the engine, the bigger the spinning parts. This reciprocating mass acts like a gyroscope. Bigger bikes noticeably resist being turned off the straight line. The best example I know of is to compare the Honda CRF 300 Rally to the 701. The Honda is 335 pounds, the Husky is 13 pounds lighter at 322. The Honda steering is more responsive on the trails as there's less reciprocating mass and steering geometry is more trail oriented. The Honda just feels lighter. And just when I feel I've confused you enough, I need to bring the Rhino into the mix. That's what we call them, the BMW 1250 Rally X.
I get it. For those who haven't ridden the Rhino, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the sheer size and presence of this bloody huge motorcycle. For the uninitiated, it's easy to write it off as being cumbersome and devoid of the capability of taking on the rough stuff. It's seen as a bike for those big open tracks, but in this test we dig deeper to appreciate the dirt handling characteristics of this bike. So hang on for the ride, it's going to be different.
I went within a millimetre of falling arse over head there. You might be able to, oh, you can see it in this picture. There's a bit of metal grate that came up, I don't know if you can see that, and stopped the tyre. And I nearly went, straight over on the 1250, but I didn't, but I did crap my pants. So I've ridden thousands of Ks on these bikes in the Outback. They are amazing. They're an amazing bike. And then the girls bring me back to reality. The girls on the Cape York ride, very clear on their expectations, what they wanted a bike. Nothing mattered except for seat height and could they pick it up. They're the two things. Don't care what capacity is, just those are the things. And that got me back to my potato theory, and bike weight just can't be ignored. And the girls bring us back to reality. For blokes, testosterone gets in the way, and many pining for adventure but with limited experience enter a motorcycle store and leave with a bike that has more horsepower than their car, but they're never happy. They need smaller testicles. Or may I strongly suggest starting on something smaller like this.
Don't look at me. Point the camera that way.
Woohoo! I'm just running slightly over time.
In this test, Clubby and I take the BMW G310 GS's way past their design limits and focus on their performance in the dirt and their capability to take you on a decent dirt-oriented adventure. It would be fair to say that I threw myself right into this assignment. We've chosen the 630-kilometre loop out of Sydney to Hill End, a famous old gold mining town.
So I'm not giving you much help in that elusive question of which bike. But if you want to get to places like this is Songkul in Kyrgyzstan, best campsite in the world I reckon, you need to ride a bike that gives you confidence and you're happy riding. Motorcycle companies do their best to build and maintain brand loyalty. And sadly, recent reliability issues are plaguing some brands, and surprisingly, customers are loyally staying with them. I regard myself as multi-denominational. I'm not interested in brand. And what I'd say is walk on the wild side, try something different. And if you're thinking of big and you're not experienced in the dirt, picture yourself at the beginning of 100 metres of deep sand. And if you're crapping yourself even thinking about that, the bike's too big for you. It may surprise you that despite all the bikes I've ridden, the one that gave me the most joy and the most wonderful memories was the mighty Bajaj 220 Pulsar. This little donkey took me all over India for a rental fee of $25 a day, never missed a beat, even at extreme altitude. Here we are heading to the ancient city of Leh in northern India. To my left is the beginning of the magnificent Moray Plains. Now that's adventure. So many wonderful memories shared with mates on a little bike. And a full length of that movie, of that trip, is out and it's being played tomorrow on Saturday. So we're coming to the end of the talk, and I wanted to leave with an example of the type of adventure that rocks my boat. I stress, however, that everyone's path to adventure is unique. It's not a pissing contest. Adventure is what you and your mates and what makes you happy. 50 years ago, we called it trail riding and exploration. The word adventure has become overhyped and pressurising and sadly has scared potential riders away. The entry bar to adventure falsely appears higher than what it actually is. You don't need an expensive bike to have fun. I finish off with a teaser from the latest adventure film, Nepal Scram. It'll be shown at 3:30 p.m. up here in the movie theatre in Ragley Hall, and I'll be introducing the film and hanging around for questions and answers. I got it. 3 minutes.
There's been a rock slide and we just had to clear this track. It's a long way down. You guys nice.
Hold on to your helmets, folks. Get ready to join the ride of a lifetime with 4 adventurers as they kick convention to the curb and hit the road less travelled in the heart of Nepal.
On top of the world, in the Himalayas.
This is not your typical bike tour. It's a roller coaster of epic proportions. Picture this: challenging trails that make your heart race, a dash of history and culture, and encounters with the kind of people who redefine the word inspiring. We're not just talking about scratching the surface. We dove headfirst into the very soul of Nepal.
Yeah, nice lovely mountains.
From the jaw-dropping majesty of Upper Mustang to the awe-inspiring views of Everest. And yeah, we even swapped exhaust notes with working elephants in Chitwan National Park. Hold on to your handlebars though, the real kicker, the monsoon decided to throw us a curveball, extending its stay and bringing challenges that had our hearts in our mouths.
They're boulders.
Whoa, whoa, watch out, watch out!
So rev up those engines, buckle up and get ready for a motorcycle adventure that's not just about the destination, it's about the thrill of the journey.
We're in some serious altitude now.
Nepal, here we come. The road's waiting and so are the unforgettable stories we are about to create.
3:30 up at the hall. So adventure, solo with friends or strangers, there's something uniquely exhilarating about sharing motorcycle adventure with mates. Each adventure becomes a shared tapestry of experiences and challenges and forges a deep camaraderie and enhances lifelong friendships. Now, there's a couple of the bikes I'm riding with. Back there was Nugget, very popular. We might get him here next year. Nosh in the middle, our cultural attaché. There's me, and then there's Clubby. Can't get him overseas because he doesn't like curry. Finally, there's Darren. I've just got a little presentation for Darren. Darren is a consummate riding companion, and on this special occasion, I brought him a gift. You're going to have to come up, Darren. He hates this picture. And let's get his favourite tune going while we come
These
up here,
fellas have
Darren.
ridden across the world on a couple of motorbikes.
time. And there's another guy here, James Cohen. Come up. He actually came on the ride out with us. And I just wanted to...
Hurry up, James.
And we're done.
I'm pushing you now.
All right, we're done. Hey, James, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stop your applause for a second, because that needs a proper round of applause. The images we've just been seeing, the story, the way you told the story, a proper storyteller. I loved the images, were incredible. So please, a massive round of applause for that man there. Hey, we've got time for two. I want a couple of questions, okay? So stand by there. We've got time for a hands up question. There's that man there. Put the microphone close to your mouth.
Where would you recommend, if you could only go to Australia once, what would you recommend as the best tour to do?
If you have dirt skills, I'd say Cairns to the tip of Cape York. If you don't have dirt skills, I'd go on a ride, adv.com ride in the Great Dividing Range.
And you could also come with me in November, by the way. Me and Charlie Borman, every November we do from Melbourne across to Tasmania, around Tassie, then back to Melbourne, over the Blue Mountains and down to Sydney. Just getting that in there, Dave, okay? One more question here.
Hi Dave. First, I want to thank you for the fantastic stuff you put out there. It takes up too much of my time. I don't get any of my own videos made, which are only any good for insomniacs anyway. But do you actually view anyone else's content?
Yeah, I do occasionally, but not very often, because I've had enough. This is not a job for me. This is a hobby. A lot of people who are on this stage, that's their job. It's not. I'm a pensioner. I'm a grandfather, and I try to weave this and balance everything. So I just do what we want to do and just have fun, which is slightly different. Like a lot of people under pressure to make money to survive. All right.
Great answer, great answer. Ladies and gentlemen, please, one more time for the man himself, Dave Darcy, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you, that was very cool. Loved it. Guys, we've got 10 minutes time.